Hi, Nate here. On today's Prime Labs, I want to talk to you the differences between a hybrid riser that is part aluminum, part carbon versus all carbon. There's a lot of reasons why we're doing hybrid versus all carbon, but one of the main reasons is because of the manufacturing process. When we think of carbon, we think of very space age, high tech, but those materials required a lot of hands-on labor. And hands-on labor is good, but it's not very consistent. And that's the problem with most all carbon risers. Now, there's a dozen different ways that you can do carbon construction, but the main one in risers is a monocoque design, and that's usually a hand layup. So the first thing to note, we're gonna use this piece of paper like it's a sheet of pre-preg carbon. The lines here are gonna be the carbon fiber. The white is gonna be the resin. First thing to know about carbon is it loves forces that are in line with the fiber. So if that force is 10 to 15 degrees not in line with that carbon fiber will only be half as strong as it was if that force was in line. So you got to think about that. The second thing you have to know is that a carbon structure is made up of many, many, many layers, like a sandwich. So most carbon risers probably have 100 to 200 different layers. So you got to keep those things in mind. So the first thing is sheet comes out, machine will cut up all these pieces of it when you're building an all carbon riser. And then that comes in a tray to the layup. And then they go off of a blueprint, which is called a schedule. And that person's got to take all these layers and line them up perfectly. And so maybe that first layer is supposed to be like this. And so they lay it down. And the next layer, they want these fibers to be orientated at 45 degrees. Now is 45 degrees like this? Is it like this? Is it like that? There is nothing driving the placement of this next layer. It is up to the discretion of the person doing the layup. And maybe the next layer is supposed to be in line with that first layer. Is that perfectly lined up? Is it not? I don't know, they're gonna put it down. Like most people, they're thinking about they didn't have their cup of coffee. Maybe they didn't like the Stranger Things ending. Maybe their kids, maybe their wife, maybe whatever, right? And they're like, oh wait, am I on layer 12, 26? I'm not sure. This thing is getting complicated. And every time that they mislay a layer, that product now is not gonna be the way they intended it to be. And that's the point here, is as this construction gets more and more complicated, more and more layers, there's more possibilities for error. And so this is the first half of the tool, let's say. Now they have the second half of the tool. They got to do the same thing, right? And so maybe those are like this, but now they got to take the one half of the tool and get it to the other half, and then they got to kind of fold that layer into this layer, or is it this layer to that layer? There's all this room for inconsistency and imprecision. Again, very state-of-the-art material when we think all carbon riser, but the way that they build these things is not. And that's the main issue that kept me away from grabbing hold of that technology and doing it. We didn't want that. We wanted more consistency. Every time that mold releases, even though the outside looks the same from the last one and all carbon, once they start to put forces on that and they string that up, they put limbs and they string it up, one riser might move this way, maybe the next one moves that way. The other one moves like that way. It's because of the inconsistency of the layup process. There's other things like consolidation and all these other things that you don't need to know, but there's a lot of room for inconsistency in that process. We have a carbon tube. It's the most consistent thing that you can make out of carbon. That's why we use them in arrows. The process is kind of similar, but we have something that's a little different. We have the same sheets of material that the other guys are using, but now we're basically just working in 0 and 90 degrees. So we can have a straight edge and just lay these sheets up and whatever the design requires us, and we can, because these are straight walls and these straight edges, we can put them down quite precise. Not perfectly precise, but much more precise than the other way. And then we just take this carbon fiber layup and then wrap it. Is it a perfect system? No, but it's much more consistent than the hand layup of a monocoque all carbon riser design. On ours, we have carbon where carbon does well, but we also use the best shape and most consistent shape that carbon can come in, and that's a tube. And that's what this is. And then we have metal, where metal does better than carbon, in the areas where it handles forces from different directions. And that's why we have a hybrid riser design instead of an all carbon riser.